Hi all, and welcome back to Narrative Pride. So today, as I mentioned in my last video, I really wanted to cover something a bit more upbeat and a bit more informative for those of you out there who are transitioning, potentially contemplating HRT, maybe just starting out. So today we're going to cover a few tips, lesser known tips to be aware of, things to keep in mind if you are starting on that wacky HRT journey. It's an exciting time, brings a lot of changes, a lot of positivity, but there are a couple of pitfalls that you can sort of fall into, especially if you're not prepared. So that's what today's video is all about. Now, I don't profess to be an expert. I've been on HRT for a year and 6 months, but I really want to talk about those first few months, the first year, which is obviously very fresh in my mind because I've just been there. And I think it's important for us to share our experiences and learn from each other because we all have different reactions to things and things can knock us around a little bit differently. We all know, and anyone that's done any bit of research, and realistically, if you're watching this, I assume that you probably have, knows about the changes that going on HRT for someone that's trans femme will bring. Fat redistribution, skin sensitivity and softness, change in body hair growth, change in libido, all these sort of things. And there's, many others. We generally all know that. They're the reasons why we want to start HRT. We want those changes. We want to grow a couple of boobs. We want our hips to pop out. We want to feel more like ourselves. We want some of those mental changes. Whether we know about all of them yet in our journey, maybe not, depending on where you are, how much research you've done, but at least some of those are what draw us to HRT. That's, the purpose of why we're looking into it, where we want to get to. What I want to talk about is some of the lesser known effects that, maybe you can see them as a negative, but they're just things that you need to manage. And the first one, which I think is really important, is fatigue. With a lot of HRT, your testosterone level will drop much faster than your estrogen level will pick up. So there's a bit of slack there. So that initial period of starting HRT, especially if you've gone on your blocker first, which is quite common, will mean that you will get hit by a fairly heavy dose of fatigue. I know in my own experience that initial wallop really hit me for six. Like it was sometimes a real struggle, particularly in the car. So be aware, not like, oh, I'm a little bit fatigued, I'll have a coffee. It will hit you. So be aware, particularly in those early days. The second part of that is don't really expect your energy level to stay the same. You're changing your engine. You're no longer running on testosterone. You're running on estrogen, which cycles a bit more, which means that during the month, you might find there are periods where you are more fatigued than others. And you're also going through a second puberty, which takes a shitload of energy. So it means that your body's now in that sort of teenager mode where we all needed more sleep. We slept in, we didn't want to get up. And if you're used to, like me, surviving off, say, 5 hours sleep, that's not really something you can do pretty regularly anymore. You're going to need to be getting your sleep. Prioritize your beauty sleep. It is a big bit of advice. It's something that I've probably only really learned recently because I kept trying to survive like I used to. And yeah, you get really fatigued, especially at different times of the month where your hormone levels were up. So number two is weight management. Now, when you're running on testosterone, it's actually pretty easy to lose weight. You just start going to the gym, you maybe tweak your diet a little bit, and you'll find that you'll burn off excess fat pretty quickly. Blokes are lucky like that. Now, when you nerfed your testosterone, you're getting rid of that muscle mass. It's slowly starting to degenerate. When you're running on estrogen, you're not burning the same amount of energy. Just doesn't happen. If you're not prepared for that, that means that you're going to put on weight. And that's not a bad thing. Remember what we want HRT to do. We want HRT to grow a pair, which generally means that we need to put on weight because that's what they are. So you want that. But it can obviously be a really balancing act and be problematic because of social pressures. We have a social ideal of what good-looking women look like. Generally, that is fairly thin. You're now susceptible to that. But of course, you still want to put on weight so it goes where you want it to with the weight distribution. Otherwise, you're not getting the effect of the HRT. So it's a real balancing act. So you probably potentially need to look at balancing things out so you can, manage the body shape that you want while also, not bordering onto I really hate myself in the mirror because I'm fat. It is a real balancing act. You don't want to starve yourself. There are too many women out there, and trans women included, that fall into eating disorders. But at the same time, you possibly can't necessarily just eat like you used to because you are burning less energy. And especially if you're not active, you don't go to the gym, you don't exercise regularly, you will see that change. So just be aware of it. Think about how you're going to manage it, but also be prepared. Don't be surprised when you start putting on weight because at the end of the day, that's the point. We want to put on weight. We just want to put it on where we want it. Up here on the hips, the good places. Tip number 3. Cramps. Now, some people in the trans community will say that you don't get period symptoms. Some people in the trans community will say that you do. Whatever the hell you want to call it, whether you call it period symptoms, a period, whatever, cramps are a thing. Particularly when you first start HRT and you start taking estradiol, you can get some really bad cramps. You may find that you get those fairly periodically over a couple of days each month. I found personally that particularly starting progesterone and adding that to my mix really ramped those up. And particularly in that first month, I was hit by some really bad cramps. There is a possibility, and some trans women probably have them worse than others, like cis women in general. But especially when you're starting meds, increasing doses, adding progesterone, that you're probably going to feel a bit shit at times. And at times you've just got to push through that. That's part of being a woman. That's why some of us really find those moments quite affirming, because that's part of being a woman, is being able to push through cramps and other period-like symptoms. So welcome to the party. It's not all great, but it sort of is in a weird way. We're pretty unusual in that we want something that's generally a lot of women would probably be happy to be got rid of, as some of those symptoms. But we're crazy. We want it. Bring it on. Just be aware of it. And maybe, look at ways of managing it. Number 4. Muscle and joint pain. This is something that we definitely don't hear enough about, but it makes logical sense. You're changing your weight distribution. That impacts your center of gravity. It impacts your muscle and skeletal system. And obviously, we're also cutting down testosterone, so we're cutting down our muscle mass anyway. So that's another factor. And particularly if you're not working out regularly, you'll see that muscle mass really drop off. So, especially if you have existing problems with your lower back, your knees, other joints, you'll find that they'll really continue to play up. And that's definitely been my experience. I have long-standing knee and back issues, and as my body shape has changed, obviously the way I carry myself, the way I walk is slightly different than it used to be. In a good way, I'm happy about it. But it does put different pressure on those joints. Definitely my posture standing up is a lot different. I've now got a little bit of weight forward. Definitely as they keep growing, and if I actually looked at breast augmentation, that would be another layer. So it's like, be aware, it's going to affect things. It's going to affect how you're holding yourself. That's why we have bras, to help support us. And that's something that we'll be thankful for, as much as feminists like to burn bras. But it can mean that if you've got existing problems, it will exacerbate it, but you might also find new problems changing because you are carrying that weight and walking around and moving in a different way. So for me, I've always had knee and back issues, but never really had a problem with the hip. And especially the last year, I've started having hip issues. And at the moment, one of the reasons why I'm using a standing desk is that my hip and back have been playing up. And that's been something that's been ongoing throughout my transition. And it's something that I've got to manage. So part of my care team, and we're lucky enough in Australia that we can organise a care team to help support us through our transition with our GP and other services. So part of my care team is an osteopath to make sure that I am getting regular treatment for those areas that have been traditional problem areas for me, but also to cater for those changes in those new sites that become a problem. So like particularly if you are tall, that you have issues with your skeletal system, maybe it's in your family, be prepared to seek treatment to really, put in the effort to really look after your body in that way. It's one of the reasons why I really prioritize my gym, is because it definitely helps minimize those joint issues and particularly manage my knee. So it does happen. It's not something that you will necessarily see on a lot of websites or even spoken about, but definitely myself, and I know others in the trans community really feel that those skeletal and joint pain can be a big factor in HRT. Now, last one is sensitivity. And I mentioned skin softness and sensitivity is something that we do know about and is quite publicized with HRT. You will notice it gradually. And a lot is said of skin softness, probably less so of sensitivity. You will find that your body responds to people touching you in a very different way. Because your skin is softer, it is more sensitive. And this is generally a good thing. It means that particularly if we're in relationship people and they're interacting with us and engaging with us and giving us a nice big hug or just stroking our arm, it can send us some really electricity through our body that didn't used to happen, which is amazing. But there is some negatives when it comes to skin, and that really highlights with hydration. So hydration is really important when you're on HRT for a multitude of reasons, one of which is that your skin really dries out, particularly things like your hands, where you're washing your hands a lot, can get really dried out, can get very sore. So, moisturizing is really important, and particularly moisturizing your body will help with that softness and sensitivity as well. You want to take care of your newfound skin, make it look radiant, make it feel healthy, and make sure that it's got a good moisture content. Otherwise, cracks, peels, particularly your hands, can be quite problematic if you're washing your hands a lot. So there are my 5 tips. Hopefully it has been helpful to some of you starting out. Probably rehashing a few things that other people have said, but maybe a couple of new ones there too. But it's been good to actually speak about something positive and have a bit of fun with it. So please, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe.